You don't notice the silence at first.
You think it's just a quiet day. No birds, no wind, just peace. But silence like that, it's not peace. It's something holding its breath. And when you find a logbook hidden under the floorboards of an abandoned fire watchtower, pages torn and stained with things that aren't quite blood, you realize something terrible waited here. And now it's waiting for you too. But by the time we understood what the logbook truly meant, the warning had come far too late. It started as a weekend escape. 5 of us, me, Jonah, Claire, Marcus, and Tasha, rented a cabin near Bear Creek Reserve, a heavily wooded patch of land up north. It wasn't part of any state park anymore, not officially. Funding had dried up, and the ranger station was long abandoned. That only made it better for us. No tourists, no rangers, no one to care what we did. Claire was the one who spotted the watchtower. We were hiking a half-forgotten trail when she pointed out the black silhouette rising above the treetops. Its frame jutted up like skeletal fingers, draped in mist. It looked ancient, like it had grown out of the forest itself. "That's so cool," she said. "Imagine the view from up there." Jonah wasn't thrilled.
"It looks condemned."
But Marcus, ever the daredevil, grinned. "Perfect." We climbed up the rotting stairs with cautious excitement. Each creak under our boots sent clouds of dust swirling. The air felt thinner as we reached the top, and inside the watchtower, it was colder than it should have been. The cabin at the top had shattered windows and a table tipped on its side.
Cobwebs clung to the ceiling.
On one wall was a map of the area, covered in red XS drawn in shaky marker. But what drew our attention was the trapdoor beneath a loose plank in the wooden floor. Jonah found it when his foot nearly went through. Underneath was a compartment no bigger than a suitcase.
Inside, a logbook.
It was thick, bound in cracked leather. The first page was stamped, U.S. Fire Lookout Post 117, Incident Log. The date started in 1976. We expected ranger notes, weather, bear sightings, maybe fires. But what we found was something else. The entries started normal enough. July 4, 1976. Smoke spotted northeast.
Radio base.
Contained by 6 p.m.
August 9-17, 1977. Night Patrol saw strange lights in the woods.
Likely poachers. We'll investigate. But then, things changed.
October 31 st. 1981. Heard whispering below the tower. No one around 4 miles. Searched perimeter. Nothing.
Sound stopped when I turned on floodlights. November 2, 1981. Found deer carcass arranged in circle. No tracks in snow leading to or from it.
Wind is dead.
Birds stopped singing. November 6, 1981. It's in the trees. I know it.
I saw the eyes again.
Amber. Not animal. By the time we hit 1982, the entries were frantic, written in near-illegible scrawl. February 11th. IT knocked on the tower door last night.
March 3 RD. I boarded the hatch.
I don't think it matters. It gets in when it wants. We laughed nervously. Claire said it was probably some prank. Marcus joked that the ranger had smoked something strong. But then we reached the last entry. April 2nd, 1982. If you're reading this, you're already dead. It follows the bloodline now. It found a way in. Don't listen to its voice.
Don't follow the sound.
It was signed only, R. We put the book down in stunned silence. A low wind groaned against the tower. Claire opened her mouth to say something, but then froze. Did you guys hear that? We paused. There it was. Barely audible.
Like humming.
Not a tune. More like a drone, coming from the trees below.
Like a woman humming in her throat, out of rhythm, broken.
It wasn't mechanical, and it wasn't natural either.
We laughed it off again, nervous, the wind, maybe something in the trees.
But none of us looked each other in the eye after that. That night, back at the cabin, Jonah brought the logbook to the dinner table. "This is seriously messed up," he muttered, flipping back to the earlier pages. "This our guy was losing it. Look," he kept drawing the same symbol at the edge of the pages.
Over and over.
He showed us. At the corner of nearly every page, scrawled in thick pen, was a circle with 3 vertical lines slashing through it, like claw marks over a sun. Claire frowned. "That looks like a mark I saw on a tree today." Marcus looked up. "What tree?" "About a mile off the trail." "Thought it was old graffiti."
Something cracked outside.
A branch snapping. We all went silent.
Tasha stood, peering through the curtain. Nothing there.
But the sound had been close.
Right outside the window.
We tried to shake it off, tried to go back to laughing and drinking, but the mood was off. Even the fire in the hearth burned strange, tall, colorless flames, licking at the air like fingers. That night, I dreamed of the tower. I stood inside it, alone, but everything was backwards. The logbook was open, and the words on the page were rearranging themselves, letters bleeding into each other. I looked out the shattered window and saw the trees shifting, parting, like something big was moving beneath the soil. Then I heard it.
The humming.
That horrible, off-pitched drone, growing louder, closer, and under it, a voice. Not in English, not even words, just something wet and ancient whispering into my skull.
He woke in a cold sweat.
Jonah was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, the logbook in front of him. His eyes looked hollow. "You heard it too," he said quietly, not even looking at me. "I think so." He turned a page. "It's not just noise. I think it's talking. I think it wants us to listen."
Claire came next, pale.
"I dreamed I was in the woods. But it wasn't me. I was something else." Tasha refused to talk about her dream. Marcus didn't have one. He'd taken 2 sleeping pills and passed out cold. But as the morning stretched on, things grew stranger. A thick fog had rolled in overnight, cutting off the road. The compass we brought spun aimlessly. No cell signal. We decided to go back to the tower, to retrace our steps and prove to ourselves it was just a spooky old book, nothing more. But when we reached the tower again, something had changed. The red XS on the map inside the cabin, there were more of them. And the final entry in the logbook? It had a fresh line, scrawled in handwriting none of us recognized. "You stayed too long." And beneath that, in smeared ink, "The Watcher is awake." We should have left then. Burned the book, run into the fog, anything but what we did next. But curiosity is a cruel thing. It pretends to be logic.
It whispers that you need one more look, one more clue.
And that's exactly what it wants. Because once it knows your name, it never forgets it. And by the time we realized that, it had already begun. The logbook shouldn't have changed. We all stood there, staring at the final page. Jonah ran his fingers across the fresh ink, smudging it slightly. It was wet, still drying. But none of us had written it. "You stayed too long," it read again. Beneath it, that ominous warning. "The Watcher is awake."
Asterisco asterisco.
Tasha took a step back, shaking her head. "This isn't funny. One of you did this."
Claire scoffed. "You think di come Becky are just to mess with you?"
In the fog. But no one was laughing. Not anymore.
Outside, the forest had grown quieter again.
That eerie, pressurized silence returned, like the trees were leaning in to hear us. Marcus tried to break the tension.
"Okay, so maybe someone came up here last night. Locals. Some weird survivalist guy living out in the woods."
He sounded like he was trying to convince himself. I looked over at Jonah, still gripping the book. "You said it was talking."
The humming.
He nodded, reluctantly. "I think it's more than just a sound. It gets inside your thoughts. That dream I had last night, it wasn't just a dream. It was like something borrowed my mind." Claire added quietly, "I felt it too. Not like it was watching, but like it had been watching. For a long time." We decided to leave. The fog was still thick, coiling between the trees like smoke, but we figured if we stuck together and stayed on the trail, we could make it back to the cabin and pack up. Better to hike back to the road and call for help than spend another night out here. But the forest had changed. The trail markers were gone. We walked for over an hour in what we thought was the direction we came, but every turn brought us to unfamiliar groves, broken branches, strange tree patterns, like they'd been rearranged while we slept. At one point, Claire stopped dead. Guys, do you hear that? We paused. The humming had returned. But this time it wasn't distant. It was surrounding us. It rose like a slow-building choir of breathless voices, vibrating the leaves, pressing in against our skulls. And then, under the hum, a sound like branches snapping, closer, heavier than any deer or bear.
Tasha whispered, "Run."
We did. Branches slapped our faces, thorns tore at our legs, the fog swallowing everything behind and around us. The deeper we went, the darker it got, not nighttime dark, but like the sunlight couldn't reach through. Not anymore. Eventually, we stumbled into a clearing. In the center stood a single wooden structure, a tiny, crooked shack we hadn't seen before.
No windows. No markings. Just old wood, warped and gray.
Marcus collapsed on the grass, gasping. Claire looked around, spinning. Where the hell are we? Jonah had fallen silent, clutching the logbook to his chest like it was the only anchor to reality. Tasha approached the shack cautiously. If we can't find the cabin, maybe this is shelter. Maybe we wait out the fog. She opened the door.
The smell it Stati Uniti first. Rot.
Wet earth.
Something sour, almost chemical.
Inside was a single wooden chair, and nailed to the wall above it, a large map. Another one of the reserve. But this map had no red XS. Instead, it had spirals. Black, tight spirals drawn over several locations, including where the tower had been. Including, most disturbingly, here. On the wall next to the map were symbols.
Carved, not drawn.
That same circle with 3 slashes, over and over again. Some of them smeared with a dark, dried crust. And below them, written in large, deliberate letters. The humming is the bait.
Asterisco asterisco.
Do not look at it.
Asterisco asterisco.
If you see the eyes, it's already inside.
Asterisco asterisco. Marcus backed out of the shack, face pale. No.
Nope. I'm done. This is a setup. Someone's screwing with us. Then explain the logbook, I said. Explain the dreams. The humming. This place wasn't here yesterday. He didn't answer.
Night come early.
We didn't even notice the sun go down. 1 minute it was light, dim, but visible, and the next it was pitch black. The forest around us began to hum again. This time we didn't run. We sat inside the shack, pressed close together, a small candle Marcus had found burning in the corner.
No firewood.
No matches.
Just the candle.
Waiting.
The humming grew louder. I could feel it in my teeth.
Jonah stared at the door. It's close. Claire said, Don't open it. I'm not going to. But then we heard something else. A knock. Soft.
Deliberate.
Knock. 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 We froze.
Another knock.
Slower this time.
Almost patient.
Then a voice. It sounded exactly like Tasha. Let me in. We turned to her. She was sitting right beside us.
The voice came again. I'm scared. Claire whispered, Don't listen.
But Marcus was already standing, staring at the door. His hand reached for the handle like he wasn't in control. Jonah grabbed him. Don't. It's not her. Marcus fought him off. You didn't hear it. She's scared, man.
Sciesse asterisco right tiar asterisco. Another voice now.
Mine.
Jonah.
Please.
I need your help.
Then Claire's. Then Jonah's own voice. One after the other, each more perfect, more familiar, calling through the crack under the door. Then all the voices spoke at once. Look at us. Jonah screamed and pressed his hands to his ears. Shut up. Shut up. Claire was crying now, clutching the logbook, flipping pages. There's got to be something about this. Then she stopped. Her fingers trembled as she held the book open to a new entry. It was dated tomorrow. August 7th, 2025.
It got Marcus first. The humming changed after.
Then Jonah. Claire followed the light. I told her not to. I told her. If anyone finds this, don't stay in the forest after nightfall.
Don't trust your own voice.
It mimics. It remembers. And it never stops watching. Claire dropped the book and stepped back.
This is impossible.
Then we heard it.
Marcus's voice.
But not coming from his mouth. From outside.
I see the eyes.
We looked at him. His eyes had gone dark. Completely black. No iris, no whites. His mouth twisted open wider than it should have, and from deep inside him, that humming erupted, louder than ever before. We bolted.
Out the shack, into the night, into the choking fog.
We didn't look back. I don't know how long we ran. Hours, maybe. The forest didn't seem to end. At one point, I turned and realized Jonah and Tasha were gone. I was alone.
Totally, utterly alone. The humming faded. And then, silence.
But not peace. The air was thick, charged with something unnatural. Ahead, through the trees, I saw something glowing. The tower. The fire watchtower was lit from within, warm yellow light spilling out its windows, just like it must have decades ago. I stepped forward, drawn to it.
Not out of curiosity.
Not even fear. Something compelled me. The stairs creaked just like before. Inside, everything was pristine. No dust. No cobwebs.
No broken glass.
The map was clean.
No markings.
The table upright. And on the desk, the logbook. It was open. And on the newest page, fresh ink. August 6, 2025. I returned alone. I thought I escaped. I didn't. It let me go so I could bring others. I think it needs us to believe in it. The watcher sees belief as a door. And I opened it. The humming began again. Louder. Closer. Behind me, the trapdoor creaked open. The trapdoor groaned wider behind me. My body refused to move, as if the weight of the humming had sunk into my bones. It filled every corner of the watchtower like a fog of sound, vibrating through the wood, rattling the windows, thrumming in my chest. My hands trembled, eyes locked on the open logbook on the desk, unable to look away. The newest entry was still drying. I opened the door. The ink twisted down the page like veins, seeping into the paper, alive. I turned.
The trapdoor gaped like a wound in the floor, yawning black and deep.
A gust of cold air spilled from it, not the kind that comes with altitude or weather. It smelled like damp stone, decay, and something ancient.
And then Uno heard it again.
Not the humming this time. Laughter. Low. Feminine.
Guttural.
Like it was remembering how to imitate a person. Something down there was waiting, and enjoying the wait. I ran. Down the steps of the tower 2 at a time, nearly slipping on the mold-slick wood, the wind screaming around me like the forest itself was rejecting me now. The fog was thicker than ever, choking, swirling, alive. I called their names.
Jonah. Claire. Tasha.
No answer.
The forest devoured sound now.
Then, ahead of me, movement.
A figure standing between the trees. Tasha.
She looked dazed, blinking slowly, arms limp at her sides. She was whispering something, over and over. As I got closer, I made out the words.
Don't see the eyes. Don't see the eyes.
Don't see.
He touched her shoulder.
She turned. Her eyes were normal, but wide, glassy with terror. It followed us, she whispered. It used Marcus. Wore him like a mask. I ran, but I heard Jonah scream behind me.
Then silence.
Then more humming. She gripped my arm so tight her nails dug in. It's not just a sound, she said. It's a signal. Like sonar. Like it's feeling us through it.
Every time we listen, it learns more.
We need to go, I said, pulling her forward. There's still time.
Time for what?
I didn't answer. I didn't know. All I knew was that the logbook had predicted everything. And if the dates were right, it would write our deaths next. We found Claire near the stream. At least, we thought it was her. She stood knee-deep in the water, staring at her reflection. Her mouth was moving, but no sound came out. Tasha, I said quietly. Is that Claire? She didn't respond.
Just stared, lips parted.
I stepped forward cautiously.
Claire.
She turned her head slowly, too slowly, like her neck had forgotten how to work. Her face looked like Claire's, but off. Subtle distortions. Her cheekbones sharper.
Skin too pale.
A line of blood trickled from her nose, but ran upward.
Not Claire, Tasha whispered. The thing blinked.
Its eyes rippled like water. Then it smiled.
And from the trees behind Stati Uniti, a dozen voices whispered all at once. Don't turn your back.
We ran.
Branch tore at our arms.
The fog felt like it had fingers, reaching, clawing. The trees loomed closer, impossibly tall now, tilting toward us as if watching. The world had warped. We weren't just lost in the woods, we were inside something else. Eventually, we reached the cabin again. But it wasn't how we left it. The front door was open, the interior dark. The air reeked of copper and rot. Inside, the furniture was overturned, symbols carved into the walls. That circle with the 3 vertical slashes, over and over. But now, there was something inside the circle. A black eye, crudely drawn, with a single vertical slit for a pupil. It looked back at us. I don't want to go in, Tasha said. I nodded. We don't have to. But then we heard a voice from inside.
Jonah.
Help me. We froze. It was faint, raspy, just a whisper. But it was him. His voice. I stepped forward, but Tasha grabbed my wrist. You heard what the book said. It mimics. But what if it is him?
Another voice came from deeper inside.
Me. My voice.
Please, don't leave me.
Tasha stepped back, shaking her head violently. We have to go. Now. I turned away, guilt gnawing at me, but I knew she was right. If it could take our voices, our faces, we couldn't trust anything anymore. We headed west, toward the old service road, hoping the fog had lifted. It hadn't. But we found something else.
A second watchtower.
Not the one we had first visited. This one was older, leaning slightly, half swallowed by a moss-covered hill. It looked like it hadn't been used in decades, its ladder rusted, its windows shattered. But the door was open. Inside, the floor was littered with bones. Not human. Deer. Birds.
Raccoons.
All arranged in a spiral that mirrored the symbol from the logbook. In the center of the room, a second logbook sat on a rusted table. This one was newer. Unlabeled. We approached it cautiously. The pages were blank at first. Then, as if ink was soaking up from beneath, words began to appear.
It's watching you now.
Tasha backed away.
Let's burn it.
Before I could stop her, she grabbed the book and tossed it into a rusted metal bin in the corner. She struck a match and dropped it in. Flames caught instantly. Too quickly. The fire roared with a sound like a scream. A blinding flash burst from the bin, and the entire tower shuddered. The floorboards cracked beneath us, the wood turning black, warped like something beneath was pushing up through it. We ran.
Back into the woods. No direction.
Just away. But the humming followed. Closer now. Like it was inside our heads. That night, we didn't sleep. We made a fire in a small clearing and kept watch. Every hour, one of us swore we saw someone moving just past the tree-line. Shapes. Too tall. Too thin. Not walking. Asterisk gliding. Asterisk. And the worst part, the logbook was back. Tasha woke up to find it lying beside her, unburned. Open to a new page. You tried to destroy what cannot be destroyed.
It wants the ending written. You are the ink now.
She screamed and threw it across the clearing, but we both knew, it didn't matter. It would return. We were past escape. This wasn't a forest anymore. It was a trap. A living, breathing entity, with rules we hadn't learned in time. A place built not to kill you quickly, but to break you down slowly.
With whispers. With voices.
With things that looked like your friends. That night, Tasha broke. She stood in the firelight, eyes wide, lips trembling. I can still hear Marcus, she whispered. He says he forgives me for leaving him.
Her voice cracked.
He's crying.
Tasha, don't listen. She shook her head, smiling and crying at once.
I just want to hold him one more time.
She walked into the woods.
I chased her, screaming, begging, but the fog closed around her like a door slamming shut. And then the humming stopped.
The silence was worse.
I stood there for what felt like hours, calling her name, but there was no response. Eventually, I turned back. And waiting for me, lying on the trail, was the logbook. The newest entry. Tasha followed the voice. I tried to stop her. I failed. Now there's only one. Me. The forest was so quiet, I could hear the blood in my ears.
I stood frozen on the trail, the logbook heavy in my hands.
The latest entry, written in my handwriting, taunted me with the truth I didn't want to accept. Now there's only one. Me. I hadn't written it, but it knew how I wrote.
How it thought.
How I felt. It had been watching from the beginning, watching and learning. I stared down the path where Tasha had vanished, the fog swallowing it whole. My voice was hoarse from shouting her name. She was gone, like the others. And now I was alone. Except, I wasn't. The logbook flipped a page on its own. No wind. No touch.
A blank sheet.
Then ink bled from the paper again, slowly, methodically, forming new words.
You will return to the tower. You will write the end.
And we will watch.
My hands trembled.
I should have tossed it, buried it, left it to rot. But I couldn't. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I knew I had to. It was like an anchor, a cursed tether between me and the nightmare this forest had become. Without it, I feared I'd forget who I was altogether.
Trattino, trattino.
I wandered through the trees, the fog thinning slightly as dawn tried to break through. The light here felt wrong, brighter, but washed out, like color had drained from the world. The trees were too still, the air too dense. There were no birds, no bugs, no life, only me.
And the watcher.
Every few minutes, I heard something behind me, a footstep, a whisper, a breath, but whenever I turned, there was nothing.
Still, I called asterisco filasterisco it. Not just watching me.
Following.
It wanted me to reach the tower again.
It was guiding me there, gently, like a shepherd steering its final sheep. I just walked. There was nowhere else to go.
Trattino, trattino.
When I reached the tower, it was different again. Not just clean.
Not just untouched.
It was new. Rebuilt. The wood no longer splintered. The walls were sealed.
The windows unbroken.
And up top, a warm yellow glow spilled through the curtains, inviting. As if it had never decayed at all. I climbed the steps in a daze, each footstep strangely muffled. Inside, the cabin was pristine. A polished desk. A tidy cot. A kettle simmering gently on a wood-burning stove. And there, resting on the desk, was the logbook, open to the final page.
A pen busy date.
The page was blank. I approached slowly, the floorboards not even creaking underfoot. The air smelled like cedar and smoke. The kind of smell that makes you feel safe. And that was the scariest thing yet. Because nothing about this place should feel safe. But it did. Too safe. Like a trap laid perfectly for the prey that wants to believe it isn't one. I sat at the desk. My body moved without thought. And then the humming began again.
Not distant anymore.
Not surrounding. Inside me.
A vibration in my jaw.
My chest. My skull. Like I was a tuning fork it had finally struck. The pen lifted in my hand. And I started to write.
Not words from my mind.
But words that spilled from someplace deeper. Older.
A voice beneath thought. The watcher waits in the stillness.
Its eyes carved into the bark. Its voice inside the fog. Its face inside your own. The forest was not meant for man. It is older than memory. It does not forgive trespass. I couldn't stop. My hand ached, but the pen kept moving. It is not a creature. It is not a spirit. It is a law. You were warned. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't understand why. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't even myself. I was just a conduit.
A final witness. Trattino, trattino.
And then the door creaked open. I turned.
Claire. She stood in the doorway, eyes bloodshot, lips trembling.
Her hair was matted with dirt and blood, her shirt torn. "Please," she whispered.
Tell me it's over.
I ran to her, hugged her. Her body was ice cold, but I didn't care.
You're alive.
She nodded slowly, eyes locked on the desk.
Did you write it?
I think I had to. She looked at me, face solemn. Then it's too late. And before I could ask what she meant, her face changed. It unfolded.
Not all at once.
It was subtle at first, like a shimmer beneath her skin. Then her features began to peel, twist, stretch like wax melting under a flame. The thing wearing her smiled. Its mouth widened far past human limits. "Thank you," it said in a voice that echoed like 10 people whispering at once.
Now we know how the story ends. He stumbled back.
It didn't follow. It just stood there, watching, as its form rippled and blurred, fading into the fog that now began to pour through the open door like smoke.
The light in the cabin flickered.
The stove died, and the warmth disappeared.
Trattino, trattino.
I don't know how long I sat there in the darkness. Eventually, the logbook moved again. It closed itself, and when I opened it, everything was gone.
Every page blank.
As if none of it had ever happened. I screamed, tore at the pages, flipped through every sheet, but there was nothing. Not even the first entry. Not even the map.
Just empty paper and silence.
And then, from outside, voices.
Children laughing. Footsteps crunching leaves. He crawled to the window.
5 hikers. College kids, it looked like. Wandering near the base of the tower. One of them pointed up at it. Another lifted their phone, likely taking a picture. I opened the window. "Go back," I shouted.
Don't come up here.
But my voice made no sound.
Not a whisper.
Nothing.
He screamed again.
No sound. I looked down at my hands. They were fading, becoming transparent. No.
He ran to the mirror above the cot. He had no reflection. Just the room behind me.
The logbook on the desk. The candle.
And the watchtower, silent.
Still. Waiting.
Trattino, trattino.
That was 3 days ago, I think. Time doesn't work right anymore.
I'm still here.
Or, what's left of me is. I've seen others arrive since.
Some make it through the first night.
Most don't. A few find the logbook. A few try to run. A few think it's a joke.
It always ends the same. The watcher waits.
And when it's ready, it teaches them how the story ends.
He don't sleep anymore. Don't breathe.
Don't move. I just watch. Because that's what it made me. A part of it. A warning. And now, a new page is turning. Because someone else is coming. And the logbook is open. Waiting. The wind howled through the broken windows of the watchtower, now nothing more than a skeletal remnant of what it once was. The storm had not let up. Lightning forked the sky, illuminating the ink-dark wilderness below, and thunder followed like a war drum. And yet, all of that was a distant backdrop to the terror that now surrounded us.
Jackson and he crouched inside. The logbook clutched tightly my hands like a sacred relic.
Its pages, now damp with blood and rain, were more than just warnings. They were a map, a history of how others had succumbed. I turned to the latest entry.
The ink was fresh.
Still wet. Asterisk, if you're reading this, it's already too late. The moment you entered the tower, it knew. It always knows.
You can't run. You can't fight.
You can only delay it. But even that comes with a price. The last person who tried to leave burned the forest down, but it came back. It always comes back.
Asterisco. Jackson's voice cracked.
Who wrote that? I looked up at him, but I didn't have an answer. He pointed to the desk in the corner, or what was left of it. The wood had been gouged with deep claw marks, the kind that didn't match any animal from this world. On top of it sat an old ranger's hat, soaked and limp, and beside it, a rusted nameplate, Ranger Davis. The same name scribbled at the bottom of every logbook entry for the past year. But Davis had gone missing months ago. "What if?" Jackson whispered, stepping back. "He never left." That's when we heard the sound again, the slow, wet dragging of something heavy circling the outside of the tower. Then the low, guttural growl that didn't belong to any animal we knew. It wasn't a howl. It wasn't a scream. It was something deeper.
Angrier.
We backed away from the windows. Jackson fumbled with the emergency flare gun he had strapped to his belt. I looked at him, confused. "In case we need to signal," he mumbled. "You think help is going to come now?" "No," he admitted, loading the flare. "But maybe we can see it, whatever it is. Maybe it's afraid of light." That's when something slammed into the base of the tower, and the whole structure shuddered violently. The lantern hanging above us swung so hard it broke off its hook and shattered on the floor.
The growl come again. Closer now.
It was climbing. I opened the logbook again, flipping to the first page, trying to find something, anything, we missed. Then I saw it, a single sentence, scrawled in the margin, almost invisible beneath old smudges of dirt and age. "Only fire can send it back."
Asterisco asterisco.
The flare.
The thing was halfway up the steps now.
We could hear the wood splintering beneath its weight. Jackson aimed the flare gun at the stairwell, sweat dripping from his forehead. "Wait for it," he hissed. The shape emerged. Even in the shadows, we could see it wasn't human. Its body was stretched and wrong, twisted like it had been remade out of bones and nightmares. Its face, if you could call it that, was a mass of blackened flesh with too many eyes, each one darting and blinking independently. And the stench, rotting meat and sulfur, thick enough to taste.
Jackson pulled the trigger.
The flare shot out with a loud crack, striking the thing dead center in the chest. It didn't scream. It didn't retreat. It just stared at us as the flame burned into its body and then, impossibly, absorbed it.
Jackson stepped back in horror.
It didn't work. "No," I said, clutching the logbook. "We need more. We need to burn the tower." He turned to me like I'd lost my mind.
"You want to destroy the only shelter we have."
"This isn't a shelter, it's a trap. A cage it built to draw people in."
"Look around, Jackson."
"Everyone who came here ended up in that book. Everyone who stayed, died." He paused, then looked down at the floor. Dozens of gouge marks.
Blood stains. Scorch marks.
Others had tried. Others had failed. But maybe they didn't go far enough. We had to destroy the heart of it, the tower itself. I grabbed the fuel canister from the emergency supply box.
Old, half full, and reeking of gasoline.
Jackson nodded grimly and helped me spread it around the room, the floor, the furniture, the base of the logbook table. The creature circled below us, slower now, like it could sense what we were doing. I looked at the flare gun. One shot left. We stood at the top of the stairwell as the fuel soaked into the wood, the stench almost overpowering. "This better work," Jackson said. I pulled the logbook from my jacket. I'd planned to keep it, proof of everything. But now I realized that would be its anchor. The thing was bound to these stories, these pages. Every death, every entry, every warning, it fed on them. So I did the only thing I could. I dropped the logbook into the center of the fuel-soaked room. Then I fired the last flare. It landed dead center, a burst of red light and heat, and within seconds, the room exploded into flame. The heat was immediate and choking. Smoke filled our lungs. The tower screamed, not the wood, the tower itself, like something deep within it was finally dying. The thing below shrieked, the most terrible sound I'd ever heard.
It scrambled up the stairs, moving too fast, the wood beneath it catching fire as it came.
But it was too late. The flames had reached the support beams.
"Go!"
Jackson yelled. We crashed through the window and leapt onto the emergency rope ladder, just as the floor gave way behind us. The tower collapsed in a roar of splintering wood and fire, engulfing the creature in a blazing inferno. We hit the ground hard, coughing, crawling away, watching as the fire consumed everything. The screams from within lasted longer than they should have, inhuman, ancient, and full of rage.
Then, silence. The forest stood quiet once more.
We waited.
The wind carried away the smoke.
The storm passed. The fire burned down to cinders. And for the first time in days, nothing moved in the trees.
Trattino, trattino. Asterisco, asterisco, 3 days later, asterisco, asterisco.
The rescue team found us on the edge of the forest, huddled by the ranger jeep we had abandoned earlier. We didn't say much, just enough to get a ride out, enough to ensure we never had to go back. They didn't believe our story, of course. They said we were hallucinating.
Trauma induced paranoia.
Said we must have hit our heads in the fall. That we imagined it all. But the logbook was gone. And so was the tower. Burned to the ground. Except for one thing. As I was packing to leave the hospital, a nurse handed me something. "This came in for you," she said, confused.
No return address.
It was an envelope.
Inside, a page from the logbook. Burnt edges.
Smudged ink. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Somewhere out there, in some other forest, another tower stands.
Another logbook waits. Another ranger hears the scratching beneath the floorboards at night. The thing is never truly gone.
It waits.
And the warnings always come too late.
So if you ever find yourself on the top floor of a lonely old watchtower, staring at pages filled with names and blood,